Hello. Well, I'm going to talk about how to serve better builds for all browsers. And the title of this talk is Always Split Your Aces and Eights, because in Blackjack, that's a good strategy to split your aces and eights, and we're going to split JavaScript application in different builds. Oh, that's my handle in GitHub, Twitter, almost everything if you want to follow me. Okay, but first I want to talk about the Visuality. That's where I work, and thanks to them I'm here. We're hiring, so if you're looking for a job, visit the website. We work with data visualization. We focus mainly on biodiversity and climate change, also inequality, and we make tools that try to bring transparency to this sector. For example, I work in this project called Trace that tries to bring transparency to the supply chain of different commodities like soy, coffee, palm oil, and it's really cool. We work with React, with JavaScript, and if you're interested, check the website. Okay, so let's get started. First, who here knows what's a transpiler, what's a polyfill, and what's Babel? Could you raise your hand? Okay, so not many of you. So basically, transpilers and polyfills arrived to the JavaScript scene when ES6 and 2016 a new JavaScript version came. At this moment, there was a drastic change in JavaScript, and browsers couldn't support this new syntax yet. So transpilers came to the rescue. A transpiler basically is a tool that translates a new thing into an existing old thing. So for example, if you have lambda functions or arrow functions, as we call them in JavaScript, you can translate that to the older notation, which was just a function. On the other side, you have polyfills, which are trying to cover the new features that these new versions of JavaScript introduced, which didn't exist in the old browsers, and which you cannot translate then because they don't exist. So polyfills are actually monkey patching the global namespace of the browser and adding new features into all browsers. Sorry. Yeah. So what's the current browser's panorama? Well, we have the legacy browsers, which don't support any of these features, like Internet Explorer. We have the modern ones that implement many of these features already, but don't support all of them. And then we have the ones that I like to call modules, which are the ones that are the most updated, and they starting to support the import-export syntax in JavaScript to import ES modules. So basically, we have these three different kinds of browsers, and all of them are important, but not all are equal, clearly. And I like to think about this analogy of a sledge with pulled by different sledge dogs, where the sledge dogs are the browsers and the car is your application. And basically, what the normal thing to do is build an application that works with every browser. So for this, you have to configure your transpilers to go to the oldest browser you want to support. And this has some penalties in the newer browsers. The car can't just go as fast as the oldest dog. So this is what I want to talk about today. Why is this relevant? Well, size, for one, because if you stop transpiling parts of your application, the code is more terse and smaller. You have to send less data to your users. Speed is even more important because these features you're transpiling to, you're using third-party code. You're using Babel. You're not using the code that is native in the browser. And browsers optimize their their methods, so they run faster when they're using their native code than when they're using third-party code like Babel. And flexibility, because maybe it's not about splitting it just for performance. Maybe it's handling browsers in a different way. Maybe it's having features in one application that you don't support in another, for example. So I want to talk a bit about good best practices when dealing with these things. For example, Babel needs a configuration file that is called Babel RC, and it's good to test your output because regressions can happen. It's really hard to know when you have a problem with Babel because it just works, but then maybe you're supporting more than you want, or maybe you're not supporting an old browser, so you have to actively test every time you change this in order to be sure that you haven't broken anything. And with this in mind, like I want to talk about this website. It's by Babel also. It's called Babel REPL, and it allows you to toggle all the options of the Babel configuration. It allows you to use this plugin, which is like the standard right now. It's called Babel Preset M, which you specify a list of browsers you want to support, and then Babel M will take care of actually adding the necessary transforms and the necessary polyfills so that your application can work in these environments. In this REPL, you can actually change the browser list, change the options, and see how it changes. It also has this cool time travel feature, so you can go step by step, seeing how each one of these options changes your bundle size, changes your code. It's pretty cool. Another thing that is important is, like I said, you have to provide a browser list to Babel, and it's important to test this browser list because you might be targeting a broader range of browsers that you think of, or you might not be covering all the ones that you want. And with this in mind, you have this browser list website that basically allows you to input a browser list string, and it shows you the browsers that you're targeting. I mentioned here really quickly that Flash of Pink is a blog post by a famous person in the community that talks about the last two versions and how it can be harmful, because not so long ago it was like the best practice, right, to support last two versions. But last two versions has a little bit like becoming a little bit like stale, because last two versions includes browsers that you wouldn't think of when you're thinking of the last two versions. It would include things like BlackBerry. It would include things like Internet Explorer 10. So he proposed this new string, which actually just targets higher than 0.25% and filtering all these other ones that you probably don't want to maintain. Okay, so going back to splitting your application in different dogs, different sledges, I made this example where the idea is to have two HTML files and 3 different JavaScript bundles with 3 different Babel configurations. Sorry about this, because I'm pretty sure you cannot read anything, but you have to believe me. There's 3 configurations. The first one is about legacy, which includes a browser list string that targets, in this case, really old browsers like Internet Explorer 9 or Safari 10. And it includes different configuration options that adapt better to those browsers. Then you have in the middle one the modern browsers, which are like the most normal browser to use. And in this configuration, you have the browser list string that I shared before. And you have this ability that Babel Preset provides that to use the built-ins. So it actually will only add the polyfills and the transforms that you want. And also it has this other option to use the proposals that these browsers are already supporting, which is cool, because if a browser like Chrome is starting to support proposals, you don't have to polyfill or add a transform for that proposal. And finally, you have this last one which is pretty similar to the modern browsers. But what it does is like specifies that first, you don't want to transform your modules from the ES6 syntax into another syntax, and also just specifies that you want to target ES modules. So this will be consumed as a script with type module. Then in your Webpack, what you need to do is grab these different targets and add them in your loader. Webpack has different loaders you can add in your pipeline, and probably if you used Webpack before, you come across the Babel loader. It's something you have to hook into Webpack in order to transform your code, and that Webpack loader has an option for passing the configuration for Babel directly in there. So this way you can actually make a program and pass different Babel configurations and create more than one bundle. Now, talking about the modern browsers and the type module and the node module thing. Modern browsers know best. And this is really cool because you don't have to handle it. They know if they support or don't support the module type scripts. So you have these directives, these attributes that you can specify that say no module. So this is a fallback. When you specify no module, the browser, if it supports the directive, will know to not parse and not execute the script, and ideally not download it. But there are some browsers that would still download it. I think most of them have fixed this problem. And then you have this other script that is type module, which only will be executed if the browser supports the type module. So with one HTML file, you can provide two different bundles for your JavaScript. But for legacy browsers, they don't even support this, so you have another problem. For legacy browsers, you need a different HTML file, and you need to go and do some user agent spoofing. And there's probably more, but there's two ways to spoof a browser's user agent that I like to talk about. The first is when you're working in an application that you don't have a server, and it's basically compiled and uploaded and served directly by a web server such as Nginx or Apache. In this case, you have to target these browsers you want to send a different HTML using a regex. And to do this, basically, it's just writing down, checking out the user agent string and writing down a regex. And if that regex matches, serving one index file. And if it doesn't match, send the more modern one. The disadvantage of this implementation is that you have to add this regex for all these different exceptions you might have. In this case, is targeting Internet Explorer, all versions of Internet Explorer. Then the other solution, which I like more, is using browser list, which is the string you are using in Babel to configure your transpiler. You can use this in the backend. There's a library for this. And the idea is to import this library called browser list user agent. And then you will receive a request, and instead of always returning the file, the same index file, you add another step before that, that is check the user agent of that browser. And then in this example, I'm reusing exactly the same targets I'm using to build the application. So you don't even have to have two separate configurations, it's the same one. And you just pass I'm passing the string for the browser list that the modern target support. So I just check if this browser is modern, and if it's modern, then I can send this HTML that supports modern or module. And if it's not modern, then I send the legacy HTML. Okay, so questions?
questions. I thought they had enough caffeine, sorry. We've done our best. No questions now? Over there.
Hi, thank you for the words. I don't know here, but in Brazil we have the unpleasure to work with ES6. It was very unfortunate and very hard, but still nowadays you have to support this browser because I work in government and we have a lot of legacy in ES6. It's not like a question, but like curiosity. I have the posture to try to kill this browser, so like upgrade systems and software and sites to not support them. I would like to know what do you think about this? Like, you had to support them, or better try to update and kill them? Because I think as a developer, it's a paper to kill them.
Well, it comes down to your users. If your users can't move because they're in the government, you have to support them, and it's kind of unfair to. I know what you feel like when, as a developer, you always want to work with the latest tech, but depends on your users. Sometimes you can't, and the good thing is that you don't have to punish your users that have more modern browsers. With this approach, you can send this slow, big version of JavaScript to the old browsers, and it's a way of also like pushing them forward, because if they want to have the full experience, then they probably should update. That said, if the users don't have any like restrictions, I mean, I don't think it's bad to suggest, or even like if it's like it's a really specific use case where they can leverage a more modern browser. Actually, don't support the old browsers. GitHub did this not so long ago. Stopped maintaining Internet Explorer. So now if you visit their page from Internet Explorer, you have a banner that says this site is working, but we're not maintaining it. So if it stops working, basically I'm sorry. And so it depends a lot on your user. Sometimes you have to be careful. I think it's a case-by-case situation.
Any more questions? Over there.
Hi. How did you deal with the fact that on iOS 10, if you use the module, no module trick, Safari downloads both the versions of JavaScript?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
On iOS 10, if you use the module, no module, the Safari will download both versions of the JavaScript. How did you deal with that?
Well, if Safari is downloading the two versions, that's a bug, and I think not only Safari but other browsers were doing this. There's nothing you can do, but it will not execute the two of them. It shouldn't. If you want to not support Safari with this modern version, you can actually remove it from your browser list and add a filter to not support Safari, and then Safari will receive the other build. And you could even go further and create more builds if that's if you want to have like an intermediate step between the two. But I think more than two HTMLs and 3 builds is a bit crazy.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? I think I can't see anyone right now, so thank you.